What's up, y'all? It's Matt Forte here with my guy Jason Romano. Tuesday morning running back. We're fresh off of a nice Monday night, two nice Monday night games, and also a great weekend of football as well as other sports, baseball, playoffs, all kind of stuff going on. Jason,
Yeah.
where should we start?
Well, let's give the listener a little inside info. So we are recording this right after your Chicago Bears just pulled the upset in Washington, 25-24. Kind of poetic justice after the way the Bears lost last year on that Hail Mary in Washington.
Absolutely.
A year later, they pull out a game that I honestly didn't think they would be able to pull out. But Caleb did really well on those last couple drives. And DeAndre Swift looked like another running back from the past for the Chicago Bears, the one I'm staring at right now. And it was good. It was a good win for the Bears. And Matt, the Bears are 3-2. It's only their second win coming off the bye since 2014 when you were still playing with them, and they got the W. I that's where I'd like to start, is just hearing what you think
Yeah.
about that Bears win. It was a big one.
Big win, big win. So many storylines going into the game. Ben Johnson losing to the Commanders last year when he was with Detroit in the playoffs. You got the two draft picks of Caleb Williams and Jaden Daniels, and the comparison between those two. And then obviously last year when they lost on the Hail Mary. And is this some kind of revenge game and all this stuff? So a lot of storylines going into the game, which in fact, if I do remember correctly, I put up an Instagram poll of, will the Bears get revenge? And 90% of the people who were following me, I think, said yes. It's a big, poll number. And I saw
Okay.
a Jason Romano who voted no
I
on there.
did. I did. I'm sorry.
So
Not
I
that I
had to
don't
bring
believe
that
in the
up.
Bears.
I had to.
Washington's been good, and I thought if they win this game, they go into first place because the Eagles lost on Thursday night. And lo and behold, I was wrong, man.
Well,
Your boys did it.
you know what? More than the Bears winning this game, they kind of aided them in that. The turnovers are something that when you look at
Yeah.
football, NFL football to be specific, but football in general across the board, the team that wins turnover battles a lot of times ends up winning the game. And for this one, the statistics held true where Jaden Daniels gave up a pick out there, but then there was a couple of unforeseen things like a fumble at the most crucial time in the game. And I feel bad for the rookie running back for Washington, the Commanders,
Yeah.
Bill,
Krosky
they call
Merritt.
him Bill Krosky Merritt, and
Yes.
he stepped in and for them has been dependable. He's been solid, but as they kind of said during the game, as well as Troy Aikman and Joe Buck were commenting on the game, that yeah, you can be really good and stepping out, but you can't put the ball on the ground as a running back. You just can't do it. And sometimes it's not your fault, like a handoff exchange, which is 50-50. It's kind of your fault. Even if the quarterback bobbles it, you got to put a hand, you got to secure it. But then the other, fumble, it cost you. It's something, it could have been worse than it was. The Bears kicked a lot of field goals in which they had a new kicker that was kicking for them. Jake Moody, my guy, my Tulane guy, Santos has a quad injury. So one of the kicks got blocked during the game. And so it kind of came to this head at the end of the game where it's like, man, he just got, and that's the mental battle, really. I want to talk about that too. A lot of people think about NFL football or pro sports in general, and they think about the mental part being a small, minute part of the game, but really it's the biggest part of the game. Imagine being out there, you just get signed this week to go start in the game for and be active for the Bears. It's wet. It's not perfect conditions to be kicking in. And then you go out there, you kick, three nice field goals. I think 40 plus yards on the first two, and then 30 something, or I think, no, actually all three were 40 plus yards. And
Yes.
then you get one blocked. And then it comes down to game winning field goal, 3 seconds on the clock. And you gotta focus. You can't think about what just happened. So shout out to him for making that kick, and for the Bears and their offense and the defense as well. The defense creating turnovers. Dennis Allen being able to create some pressure in different ways. They haven't had a lot of pressure on the quarterback with their front four. And so he's been blitzing and stuff, which caused them to give up a lot of big plays in the passing game a little bit. But they, they put it all together. I think that was a solid team win, offense, defense, and special teams. The running game out there, as you mentioned earlier, Swift looked committed. He looked like he had something to prove out there. And when they
Yeah.
opened the holes, shout out to Darnell Wright. He stepped up. He's had an elbow injury, sat out last week, but came back and is probably playing with pain. And he's opening some holes up there. I saw on one of the toss plays where he got 19 or 20 yards, he blocked two guys. And that's what you want to see from your O-lineman, especially a tackle who is the first round guy, pulls around, uh, arm checks one guy and then goes up to the safety. Like, that's how you get those kind of type of big explosive runs like that. And the Bears need more of that, because when your defense creates turnovers and your running game can take the pressure off of Caleb, you get wins like that. And that was a big time win by the Chicago Bears, who are sitting at 3-2 right now and sitting nice after a couple of tough losses early in the season.
Couple of weeks back, after the Bears lost on Monday Night Football at home to the Vikings, a game they probably should have won, but they lost 27-24. We jumped on the next morning, just like we're doing now, and talked about the Bears. And it was only 1 week, so you never want to overreact. But you were concerned that you saw a lot of the same things, same mistakes, if you will, from the past. Well, let me throw a couple numbers at you. 175 total yards for Swift, both catching the ball. You had the great touchdown reception and running the
Yeah.
ball with some really tough runs at the end of the game to put them in position. By the way, Swift won me my fantasy this week, so I was kind of sweating at the end watching it here at home myself. I'm like, I just need a couple more yards, Swift, and he got it. But here's a few other interesting notes. The Bears have won 3 in a row. I don't have the exact stats, so I don't know how long ago it's been since the Bears won 3 in a row, but it feels probably like forever, right? Like that's a pretty good winning streak to get
Yeah, I
going
don't have the
on.
stats either in front of me, but I can probably venture to say it's been a while
It's
before
been a while.
three in a row.
How about this one? 2 road wins, both wins by the score of 25-24. How fascinating is that? I mean,
Interesting.
that's not a common score. It's not
Yeah.
17-14 or 21-17. 25-24, they beat the Raiders last week. 25-24, they beat the Commanders last night. And the Bears are sitting at 3-2. They got the Saints on Sunday at home. They come back to Soldier Field and they play at Baltimore after that, which in week 1 I would have told you no way. And now Baltimore is very vulnerable. And then they go to Cincinnati, who's got Joe Flacco at quarterback, and
Yeah.
then they're home against the Giants, which is not, it's a winnable game now. And you said the Bears would finish 9-8. That was your prediction. It's not impossible at this point.
Yeah, they could be sitting at 7-2 after these next
It
4 weeks.
could be.
These are some winnable games. There are some things that they need to continue to work on, obviously, each and every week, whether it be pre-snap penalties. There were some iffy calls in there, like the Adunze catch that was really nice, should have been a touchdown, and they claimed that the tackle, wasn't on the line of scrimmage, that was an iffy call, because it looked like his helmet was breaking the plane of the center and the back of the center. But they definitely are in position to make a run, and also to establish an identity as a football team. I think that's a big and an important thing to do. When you get a new coach to come in, a new offense, a new system, and you got when a new coach comes in, you got different players, and there's always turnover each and every season. So how do you define yourself as a team and as an offense? So as a team, I think they're really starting to define themselves as a tough, hard-nosed, like a team that's going to fight and play to the end of the
Mm-hmm.
game and not be like, here we go again, and which we've seen before. And then the offense, well, I'm hoping that they continue to run the ball like they have been and be a balanced attack, but then also establish
Absolutely.
that kind of smash mouth football type of offense that is just, we can kind of take advantage of you in many different situations, or whatever the defense is giving you. If you think, hey, we're not going to blitz you, we're going to sit back and make you beat us with the run game, or pass, or like make you do it the long way, where it's check downs or short passes, intermediate passes, nothing deep. we can do that. Or if you're going to blitz us, hey, we're going to burn you and go deep on some plays with our big play receivers and having guys step up. So um, yeah, I mean, it's very encouraging to see a road win and to have 3 wins in a row. So looking forward to how this team continues to grow, continues to fight, and continues to believe in each other. But it looks like they're very, very much bought into Ben Johnson and the crew.
Yeah. And they're improved clearly at this point, still early. They got some winnable games, as we just talked about, because after you get past the Giants, you got to go to Minnesota, home against Pittsburgh, at Philly. I believe that's a Friday after Thanksgiving game, at Green Bay, obviously tough division. Home against the Browns might be the one real winnable game there. And then you got the Packers again, the 49ers, who knows where they'll be at that point in December, and then the Lions at home. So they got to win these winnable games here and then get a couple of games where maybe they're not expected to win and pull those out, kind of like they did on Monday night. And who knows? Maybe they'll be in the mix because, Matt, this is what I was going to get to. And we could talk about Monday night too, but the Bills losing to the Falcons, there's a boatload of 4-2 teams, and there really isn't, in my opinion. Maybe you could say the Colts are the clear cut, but I'm still not bought into them being the dominant team in the NFL. And Tampa in the NFC, maybe at this point, Baker's the MVP. But I look at all of these teams, and I don't see a dominant team that's kind of running away here. I think it's wide open. Don't you think so?
Yeah, it's definitely wide open. There's some teams that started off hot, and that's the reason there's record is 4-2. Sometimes it looks good like that and it goes downhill for whatever reason. Could be injuries, could be just after a while, defensive coordinators are starting to figure out certain systems and certain players and how to attack them. But at the same time, too, it's really each and every week you got to have you got to have your stuff together. You got to be prepared. And I mean, look at the NFC East. The Patriots are now atop the NFC East after
Incredible.
a 2 week slide by the Bills, and no one saw that coming. But um, who knows where the NFC East will be in the next 2 weeks, and will
That's
the
right.
Patriots continue to improve and play better under their quarterback who
Drake May. Yeah.
Drake May is emerging to start to show that he's kind of I can play in this league. So um, it's definitely interesting how these things. It's definitely like when you see at the stadium and they have the little video board thing and it's the race and everything's really close together. That's how the season seems to be going. It's like nobody's just running away. Like we're dominating our division right now. It's these divisional games where if you lose those, I mean those can cost you. Which, um, that's why you gotta. If they're early in the season, you gotta win those early. It's the only thing that the Bears have done that hasn't been kind of perfect, I guess, as they started this season. Early in the season, dropping those divisional games will definitely hurt you if you don't take care of the games you need to each and every week going
Yeah.
forward.
Yeah, and they had the early buy, which is I'm not a huge fan of. I don't think there should be buys this early, personally.
Hmm.
That's just my opinion. But I understand there's so many games and so many teams, and you have to spread it out the best way you can. But now you got to play whatever it is, 11 straight weeks in a row, and finish out the season. And at least people listen. We're talking about the Bears here. It's also coming off a few days after somebody released a brand new book, so it's kind of exciting times in Chicago right now, Matt Forte. We'll just leave it at that. It's
Yeah,
exciting
it's
times.
exciting. It's exciting times.
Yeah,
I actually I'm on the heels of being in both airports this past week
yeah.
doing
How was that? I was going to
signing.
ask you about that.
It's
Yeah.
really cool. The Chicago Marathon was in, and a lot of people came in town for that, and then a lot of people were going out of town to go to the game, the Monday night game that we just watched against the
Oh yeah.
the Commanders and the Bears. So you had Bears fans that were leaving, and they're like, "Hey, guy who I loved watching for a decade or so." Is in the airport. Yeah, I'm gonna stand in line and get a book and have him sign it or whatever. Or then a lot of people who were coming in town for the marathon and stuff. It was funny. It's funny how human beings are. Like if you see a line, people are like so curious, like what's going on over there. It's a lot of commotion and everybody's nosy, and their curiosity gets them. So then they call other people like, "Do you know who so and so is?" And they're like, yeah, I know who that guy is. Make sure you get this to get a book. So people just get in line and they get stuff for other people. So I love the generosity aspect of it. And also it's a great gift, to get somebody, because even though it's a memoir, which is supposed to be, obviously my story and a lot about me, a lot of it is about your purpose on this earth outside of yourself, and like how I can utilize what God has given me to point to him and to give, and to bless other people. So it'll definitely be a good gift to give other people so that they can just reframe their thinking of success, and just the difference between earthly success and the eternal significance, which is what God has given us as a free gift of salvation, obviously.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, Stay in the Game is out now. Matt Forte, making the most of every season, making the most of Monday night were the Atlanta Falcons, 24 to
Hmm.
14, big win over the Bills. What was, from when you look at that game, and Bijan played just incredibly. He's such a great player, Bijan Robinson, so much fun to watch. When you're watching a game like that, though, and I know you were switching back with the Bears, it was kind of weird having two games on almost at the
Hmm.
same time. Were you more concerned with the Bills losing or more impressed with the Falcons winning when you watch a game like that?
I would say a little bit of both, because it's concerning because the Bills don't normally do that under Josh Allen, and how McDermott coaches them as well. And I think right now they're going through a little bit of their patch in their season, where it's what's the adversity aspect of it? Like, are we going to fight through this? And how did we get in this position, and then how do we get out? And then also when you see the Falcons, like, they took advantage of their opportunity. They lost a couple of games early in the season, specifically the one to Tampa Bay that they should have won, honestly, if you look at it, um, all things being equal. And, when things like that do happen, you have, it's kind of like your back is against the wall. You have no other option except to, as a team, like, let's grow from here and start to continue to fight. And it's encouraging if you're an Atlanta Falcons fan, but also I'm glad, because I like to see all the running backs do well when Bijan gets an opportunity. And like, when you see a guy that talented and he can catch the ball, he can run, he's very smooth and he's explosive. Like when he broke that 81-yard run, longest run in the NFL right now, this season, and it looks like he's like not even trying, and he's just floating. It's like, shoo. It's like you want to see a guy like that, because he works so hard, and also the talent that he has when he gets those opportunities to make a play. And it's like, if he gets the opportunity, boom, it's happening. Like, it's gonna happen. So they open up some holes for him, and like, if he gets a secondary, it's a wrap. Like, you're not catching him. So it's good to see the Falcons are growing, and also, you know, make in having the running backs, contribute to this league. It's not this passing league as they always talk about. Even in the passing game too, though, like
Yeah,
Swift, catching I think it was 50 plus yard touchdown reception, which most of that came off of his legs. It was a short pass, but you break a tackle, you're up the sideline, you make a big play, and
big play. Yeah.
same thing with Bijan, of having 170 rushing and 60 plus receiving yards.
But you like these running backs that can catch the ball out of the backfield, right?
Absolutely, I
I
don't know
mean, a
why that
certain
is.
I don't know. A certain workhorse 22 did a lot of that when he played, and Bijan. And maybe we can just transition right now into the workhorse of the week, because you and I had talked about some options, and I even threw a bunch of names at you before the Monday night games of some guys who had really good games, like Jackson Smith and Jigba played a great game. Baker played really well with Tampa. Rico Dowdle
Well,
doing it again,
again.
back to back weeks, and it goes against the Cowboys and completely just buries them. But then we just saw what Bijan did. So I'm curious who you're going to take for your workhorse of the week.
Yeah, it was a lot of great options out there. A lot of guys balled out this week, but all things being equal, I gotta go with Bijan Robinson for the workhorse of the week. That was a workhorse game. He really put the whole offense and the team on his back when it came to getting that win and securing that win against a tough Buffalo Bills team and defense, who is not normally lenient against the run. He was able to. I mean, and honestly, in the NFL, it's hard to break a 20-yard run and to have to have some explosive plays like that in the game, and then also a to have and then to contribute receiving wise in the same manner. Um, those are games where you really are like on all cylinders, whether it be receiving game, running game, your vision, catching the ball, and then also just the body of work that goes into it. I remember one of I think 2010 opening day against Detroit. I had a 89-yard screen pass up the right sideline, and then I had like a 56-yard catch in the end zone that I caught. And then the running game was there, but not as much as the passing game. But ended up having over 150 yards receiving, but then close to 100 rushing. And when we finished, we won the game. We finished that game. You're like, man, I put in a lot of work today, and that feels good. That feels like a workhorse day, and that's what Bijan did. So I got to give it to him, even though there was some really good candidates as well.
Bijan Robinson, 170 yards rushing and a touchdown, 6 catches, 68 yards receiving in a big win for the Falcons, 24-14 over the Bills. Matt Forte's workhorse of the week in Sports Spectrum's Tuesday morning running back, presented by the Faith and Sports Institute at Baylor University's Truett Seminary, equipping Christian leaders in sports through theological education, practical training, and resources. Whether you're a coach, athlete, pastor, or student, you can pursue an online or residential graduate degree, earn certificates, or grow through leadership practicums. Start your journey today at baylor.edu/truett/FSI, baylor.edu/truett/FSI with the Faith and Sports Institute at Baylor University. Think deep, lead strong, and run the race well with the Faith and Sports Institute at Baylor University's Truett Seminary today. All right, Matt, what'd you learn about the Lord this weekend? Were you at church this weekend? I know it was a holiday
Yeah,
weekend too, and you were doing some stuff with the kids. So what'd you learn at church this weekend?
absolutely. Was at church this weekend, and it was a very, very timely word. And timely, what I mean by that is just what's going on in the world as well as in our nation right now, with and even in Chicago with ICE raids and all kind of things that are going on. And um, Reverend Pastor Charlie Dates preached out of Second Kings chapter 7, the whole chapter. And so he, in Baptist church, when they read scripture, it's like a respect or honor thing that we stand up when he reads the word of God, which I think is awesome. I kind of teach my kids to do that, even if they don't have their Bible. I'm like, hey, stand up, because it's like you respect God's word. Because back in the day, biblical days, man, they would bring a scroll out and like literally like hold it with both hands, like this is the word of God. It's that weighty.
Sacred.
So
Yeah.
yeah, and so not. I don't like that sometimes today everything is convenient. We kind of water things down. So he read the whole chapter. You can read it on your own. Second Kings chapter 7. It's Elisha. Elisha has a prediction for not only the king of Israel, but for especially the king's like right hand man who was at the city gates. And basically, they're in chapter 6 is a famine. There's a famine, and they're being sieged by the Arameans. And what Elijah is saying is that this is gonna end. The siege is gonna end, and the Lord is gonna provide for them. And the guy at the city gates is like, he doesn't believe it. And so Elisha prophetically tells him, he says, well, it's gonna happen because God told me it's gonna happen. You're going to see it, but you're not going to get to be able to partake of it. And you can kind of take that for at its word, like what that means for him. So these 4 lepers go into the camp of the Arameans to go check it out. They're like basically like, look, we're lepers, we're outcasts. And in those days, if you're a leper, like you're ostracized. You can't go near people. You're outcast no matter what. So these 4 guys, they go into the camp because they're like, well, what do we have to lose? And that's the name of the sermon was, nothing to lose. And a lot of times we don't understand uh, being desperate. We live in a country that it's the wealthiest country in the world or in the history of the world, and there's not a lot of times where, uh, like in the previous chapter, women were sacrificing their babies and feeding off of them because they were so desperate for food. Like they were like one of the if you read chapter 6, one of the ladies says, hey, today we'll eat mine and then tomorrow we'll eat yours. And like the
Wow.
other
Yeah.
lady the next day doesn't do it. And they're being cannibals of their own children, their own seed, which is insane. Like that's very desperate, right? I don't know.
Yeah.
We've never really seen, desperate like that. And so these guys are desperate. They're like, well, what do we have to lose? We're lepers. Like, if we go into the camp and they kill us, what matters if we die there or if we die here at the city gates? So they got nothing to lose. They go, yet the camp is empty. No one's there. The Arameans, they said God caused a sound of chariots and like war to come upon them, and they fled. So they left all their stuff, all the spoils, all the food, all the everything, all the gold and all the stuff that they have. So the lepers are having a feast. So they're like starving. So they're like, okay, they have a feast and everything, and they start to hide the spoil, and they start to have like a conscious moment, like, wait, this is wrong. We can't just do this, and hold this to ourselves. We need to share the good news. And that's one of the opportunities in the Bible where you see good news, like sharing the
Yeah.
good news, even though it's a different meaning in the New Testament. But so they go and they share the good news, and the king thinks it's a trap. He's like, even still him, he doesn't believe it. He's like, this is a trap. They've just left it so that we come there, and then they would, overtake us when we come there. And so long story, short, um, uh the men go out there and they trust God to go, and they're like, look, they had nothing to lose either. Like, let's at least go see to see if it's true. And so it ends up being true. And then the word gets out, and there's so much of a rush because of the desperation that everybody rushes through the city gates to go out to the Arameans camp. And the guy who's the right hand man of the king at the front gates gets trampled and he dies. So he sees that there's like this surplus of food and like basically the salvation of what they were desperate for, and he sees it, but he doesn't get to partake in it. He gets trampled. So the message of it was really, when God says something's gonna happen, it's gonna happen, like in His Word. And then also that when we have an opportunity, even if you're in desperation, if you have an opportunity to share what God has blessed you with, you definitely got to go and do that. Specifically here in Illinois, in Chicago, with everything going on, ice and all the stuff, crazy stuff. There, I think at the end of the month, they're going to be something's going to happen where they're shutting down food supplies and some of these food depositories, dispensaries across the city, where there won't even be enough food, or they just won't be able to have the ability to give it out. And mind you, there's definitely different neighborhoods who have they have food deserts. There's not certain neighborhoods that don't have grocery stores in them, and they don't have like access to clean, good food. So they actually
Right.
have to rely on these places. And so that's where the church has to step in, and that's what we've been talking about. Is just we have to be the hands and the feet of God in these moments where the Bible does say God's promises that He will supply all our needs, and that's food, shelter, water, right? And food is a part of that. So in what way will He be able to do that? That's what the church is supposed to be a part of, is to be able to have the ability to go out and minister to the community, not only through the spiritual aspect, but physical needs too, that people may have.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. The only thing I can compare that to, and you're right. Like, I think as believers, as followers of Christ, you and I have never been, I don't think you have, but have never been to a place of desperation like that, right? Where I've been hungry before, but I always was like, all right, I'm going to get something to drink or something to eat, or I'm going to go down to go down to the store and grab something or whatever. I've never had the moment where I'm truly desperate. And I went to the Dominican Republic 2021, I think it was, with Compassion International. And I saw for the first time like real desperation. And I've seen, certainly in some of the cities that I've walked in, people who are homeless or hungry or whatever. And that's certainly very real as well. But you go into an actual village where they have nothing except each other, the word of God, thankfully through compassion and the way that they would, share the word of God and have these churches. But they were so grateful, so appreciative, but also so desperate. Like I
Mm-hmm.
remember grabbing a box with Oreos in it, little Oreos, and you would have thought I had manna from heaven, Matt.
Mm-hmm.
And I was handing the Oreos out. I found out I wasn't supposed to do that, by the way. But I was handing out all the Oreos, and people were like, please, please. And I didn't realize what that was to them, whereas to me, it was just a little Oreo, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and yeah, I think we just have to remember that as followers of Jesus, like we have so much that we're called to we're also called to preach the gospel. We're called to reach the widows, the orphans, the poor. That's what we're called to do. And if
Mm-hmm.
we forget that, I think that's a pretty dangerous place to head towards.
Yeah, I think it's it's specifically cruel and immoral to have something that others may need and withhold that purposefully. Um, that's the whole reason, like, God does extend a blessing to us. Actually, blessing is the capacity to extend what God has given you. Like, that's like the definition of it. Like, it's not just for you to hold
Yeah, we
on
throw
to it.
around that word a lot, don't we?
Yeah,
It's a
yeah.
blessing, but yeah,
And I think it's really, it's like wrong to do that. But we all have our selfish ways, and I think we have to open up our mind and our perspective, and going somewhere where you see real desperation is a great way to do that. We went to India and saw the same thing, where it's like, man, you never seen want or need in this type of way, um, here in America. And so uh, it reminds me of how Jesus lived his life, and he said, "For that which you do to the least of these, you do unto me." And the least of these are those who are in such dire straits and who are in such need. Um, and to as James, the book of James, which is very clear and concise, and says these things like, uh, what good is it? Because the faith without works part is like to your brother say, hey, I'm hungry, and you say, man, I pray for you, I hope you get fed, I hope your belly gets full, and not give them something that you have for them. Or I'm cold,
yes.
or I hope you get warm, I'm not going to give you my jacket, but I'm going to pray for you. Like, that doesn't do them any good. And so we talk about these things all the time. Is like, us as Christians or Christ followers will say, oh man, I'm gonna pray for you, I'm gonna pray for that, when we actually sometimes, or a lot of times, have the capacity to extend to them something that will satisfy that need that they may have. And honestly, the greatest way to extend um the or some spiritual nourishment towards somebody, or even spiritual kind of activation or a catalyst to them. They might not even be receptive to the gospel until you meet a physical need that they have.
Yes.
Because
Yeah.
you can go in neighborhoods, and like, I've done it many times. You go talk to these kids who, um, they're influenced by whatever's around them, and they're like, man, I don't want to hear nothing about that. Like, how am I going to eat tomorrow? Or how am I going to be safe tomorrow? So you got to actually extend a physical need, or meet a physical need, before even starting to talk about the gospel, because otherwise they're not going to hear that.
So good. Yeah, it's so important to remember that. I think as Christians, we just sometimes we get selfish or we get scared, so there is a little bit of a fear factor there too. Like, I don't want to lose what I have, or I don't want to put myself in harm's way to help someone else. I think that's very real. I know I've felt those things in the past. Um, but I think that's a great reminder, like to step out of our comfort zone, and into these spaces to help and to serve and to love. Uh, my buddy John Gordon, the author, says, love and serve and care. Like, if you want to be like Jesus to people, love them, serve them, care for them, and trust me, in the moments that you do that, you'll have opportunities to share the gospel, because they'll see that you genuinely care about them, and will want to, hear what you have to say. But you
Yeah.
got to start somewhere. You got to step out.
I'm pretty sure God will, and Jesus would much would much rather see us live the gospel than to share it verbally. Because words only go so far. Um, at least our words only go so far, and then actually, if we actually are doing, I'm displaying it, then they can see it. That's the gospel, when you're actually going and you're doing what it's called you to do. And I'm glad you said that. Sometimes we want to, it's because of fear. Like, we may, like, well, I don't want to give this up because I don't know if I'm going to ever get it back or anything. Like, one of the things that Charlie Date said on Sunday, which was so good, was that God sees faith. The smallest act of faith is irresistible to him.
Mm,
And that's, like, it's so true. So they were in desperation. So desperation caused them to actually have some faith to say, I'm gonna go and see what's out there anyway. That act of faith led to, as it says, the Lord causing them to hear this, noise of chariots, and they thought it was war, and they flee. Then all this, the blessing is right there, right? And it's just such a great picture of even those being in desperation, being like, there's others who need this too,
yeah.
and to share the good news. And this it's a very good picture of us. We're desperate for God, whether you know it or not. We're in debt, our sinfulness from birth, until we actually consciously recognize, man, I am a sinner in need of a savior. And for me to figure that out, or God kind of enlightened me to say, I read his word, and it's like, for me not to share the good news would be a crime
Mm.
against my brothers and sisters who are in the same predicament that I was in. So it's the same thing. It's like, man, they find this great, gift, free gift, which is like we us finding and receiving the free gift of salvation and holding it all to ourselves. It's like, no, let's have the consciousness and the faith to say, others out there need salvation. Let's share let's share that. Let's share the good news to them too.
Blessed are the poor in spirit. I mean, that's literally what Jesus was saying. Like, all of us have to come to a place where we realize we're desperate in our spirits for Him, and that's, it's a beautiful thing to think about, and it's something we have to really come to grips with as followers of Jesus, and not just be hanging on, white knuckling everything we own, and not wanting to, I don't know, not wanting to serve others and share with others. So, good reminder there, Matt Forte.
Yes, sir.
Uh, this was fun. We don't normally tape on a late Monday night into a Tuesday morning as we release this, a few hours later. So this was a lot of fun to do. Hopefully next week we'll have a more reasonable hour of recording, because I don't think the Bears play on Monday night anymore. So that's a good thing
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
my sleep. But
Really
yeah,
quickly, was there
yeah.
was there anything that surprised you this weekend? Any surprise wins? Well, I know the one surprise loss is Buffalo for me. That was a
Yeah.
surprise.
Yeah, that was a big one. The Bills losing. I think the Eagles, I'll go back to Thursday night.
Yeah,
The
yeah,
Eagles losing at New York. Something's up with the Eagles. I don't know. I mean, they've lost two in a row. That game against Denver was a kind of a fluke loss, but two in a row, and you're the Super Bowl champs, and it's really hard to repeat. And you can have the same roster the next year and be like, that doesn't look like the same team that was rolling over people the previous season. But I think the Eagles, and I guess Washington losing was good for the Eagles now, because Philadelphia remains in first place. But to lose two in a row, and to lose that game at the Giants with a rookie quarterback and a rookie running back, shout out,
yeah.
to Scattaboo coming in there and grinding some yards up for the Giants. That was a surprise. Not only that, but they lost by a lot. Like, they got beat pretty bad. I think it was
Hmm.
34-17. It wasn't close. And that was surprising to me. So it'll be really interesting this week to see how the Eagles bounce back. I think they're at Minnesota on Sunday, and it'll be really interesting to see how they bounce back. So I think that was a big surprise for me, to see Philadelphia look as
Yeah.
look as uh, it just looked the way they looked, which ended up being, a pretty bad loss for them.
Yeah, if we go back last year, their strength of their team is the defense. Even though you get blindsided by the 2,000 yard season by Saquon, and then like the whole Jalen Hurts, being the quarterback, and um, stat wise, it's always been very average as the quarterback. It's not a lot of 300-yard passing games. It's kind of a lot of the rushing and passing attack with strong defense, but sometimes it's not enough if you make mistakes or if you don't really execute and score a lot of points on
Yeah,
offense or if you give up a lot of points on defense. But not surprisingly, though, my takeaway is that, or what I'm leaving this week with is that the Kansas City Chiefs look good. They look good
they
again.
did. They
They
did.
looked really good on Sunday. I was
Detroit
like,
had a
whoa.
chance to bury them, in my opinion, and put them
Uh-huh.
at 2-4. And that second half, they looked like the Chiefs, and we cannot write them off, Matt Forte.
No, you
Patrick
can't.
Mahomes will not allow us to do that.
He was staring 2 and 4 down the barrel and was like, nah, we're not doing that.
Nope. And Detroit had that game. That was the Sunday night game. Detroit was up and had the ball, and Dan Campbell is Dan Campbell, but he went for it on fourth down um, in the first half. And my brother's a big Lions fan, so I'm kind of deconstructing the game with him. And he goes, "Oh, it was bad calls, and they didn't. The Chiefs didn't have a penalty on them the entire game. First time in like 70 years that had happened to a team." And of course, the conspiracy theorists come out. Oh, it's the Chiefs, and they're not going to call anything on Mahomes and Kelsey and those guys. But the Lions had the ball driving, and they went for it on 4th and 5 at the 45 or so, and Amon-Ra St. Brown dropped it, kind of
Yeah,
went right through his hands. If they score on that drive and they go up by double digits, I think that game's completely different. And the Lions are really good. I still think the Lions are maybe outside of Tampa, the most impressive team still to me, even after that loss this year in the NFC. But they could have buried them, and the Chiefs were like, "Nope." Like you said, staring down the barrel at 2-4. They were like, "We're fine. We're going to be okay."
yeah,
And a big win for them at home. And if they win next week at home, they're 4-3, and they're right there
yeah,
yet again.
yeah. You can't
So
make mistakes against teams like that, especially with
no,
a quarterback like Mahomes, which is
he's so good.
interesting too. Um, with the conspiracy theorists and things like that. I think there's sometimes a little discretionary call by the officials based on who it is. Because I tweeted about
Well,
it too.
I
Uh
thought you might say that
Mahomes
because that's
Mahomes
real,
had
right?
he had a touchdown early in the game and he clearly like taunted the guy. Which if it's somebody other than him, I think they make that call. But it was interesting. He stared right at him and he like does this.
Yeah.
And he
Yep.
pointed at him too. And he pointed at him. So it was like, yeah, I tweeted, what do y'all think about that? Mahomes Selly, because he doesn't normally like celebrate like that. All of them came out talking about, it's surprising, it's Mahomes. They're not gonna call it. It's the Chiefs. They're not gonna call it. But something like that, like post touchdown, I think is a lot more lenient than like during the heat of the game. I remember scoring a touchdown 2015 against 49ers after my son was just born, my youngest son, and I did the baby thing. And at this point, the NFL was lame, and they wouldn't let you like celebrate like
That's right.
all the
No
way.
fun
And
league.
you couldn't use a prop, which the football was a prop. So I used, I did like this with and so the referee runs over and he's like, hey, did you just have a child? I'm like, yeah, that's why I did the celebration. He goes, oh, okay. So he let it slide, like I didn't get the penalty on it, but he I don't know, he kind of used his discretion to whether to
Yeah.
call it or not.
Yeah, it's interesting. If you go on social media during Chiefs games, you will think there is a legit bias in the NFL for the Chiefs and against the rest of the league. Now, I will point out that the Chiefs did lose the Super Bowl last year and the Eagles demolished them. And there was no bias in the biggest game of the year last year because the Eagles were just better. But there's certainly moments when some plays happen and you're like, okay, Mahomes is trying to draw a penalty, or Kelsey had a ball where I think it was clearly a drop and hit the ground and they called it a reception. And uh, it is what it is. You can nitpick every game though, right? And the Chiefs
Yeah.
are just the ones where we're all watching because they've been so good the last, almost last decade. So
Yeah. I can
yeah,
tell you after playing 10 years in the NFL, it's hard to follow that script that they write for us, you know.
yeah, that script exactly. Yeah, that pre-written script that they hand you before the game. Okay, Matt, you're going to rush for 140 yards.
Before
Yeah,
camp, yeah,
exactly.
it's like
You're going to be
this is
nine
the
and
kind
eight
of
this year.
season. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think if the refs were being biased, that the Chiefs wouldn't have been, 2-3 or whatever they were going into that Lions game. So, anyways, it'll be fun to watch the rest of this week. And as always, on a Tuesday morning, my friend, it's good to see you, and look forward to seeing you again next Tuesday.
Yes, sir. Until next time.
Until next time. By the way, really quick shout out Friday's guest on the podcast. Matt talked to Coach Rack, and you might be like, "Who's Coach Rack?" Well, do you know about the Savannah Bananas? Like taking the baseball world and the sports world by storm this year. Matt got to talk to one of their primetime players, Coach Rack, who's not a coach; he's actually a player on the Savannah Bananas, and loves Jesus. There's something going on within that clubhouse too, which will be a lot of fun. So make sure you tune in on Friday on the Sports Spectrum podcast with Matt Forte and Coach Rack from the Savannah Bananas. And we'll see you next time here on the show.
Peace.